Halo is a game defined by its nuances, and unlike many other point-and-click shooters, building a good understanding of Halo's design basics is a critical way to improving your own gameplay. I'm the Home Slice, Ascend, and today we're going to explore the definitions of weapon tiers and weapon classes. By doing so, you'll gain a heightened understanding of the weapon sandbox and will have a better functioning understanding of what to use while playing and why you should use it. Like always, be sure you stick around for my viewer question at the end, tap the subscribe button if you haven't, and let's get started. Okay, so actually, let's start with a disclaimer. In this video, I'm likely to use some words your other favorite Halo tubers have also used, and believe it or not, our use of words may not exactly match up. Isn't English beautiful? Anyway, the point is, you can either argue in my comments about which person who isn't actually a game developer used the right words, or you can focus on the meanings and definitions and learn something. But it's a free country, so I guess do whatever you want. The grander concept we need to tackle is weapon tiers, of which there are three: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Weapon tiers are the loose bins that define weapons by killing potential. Now, potential is not the same as weapon damage, and that's very important. Killing potential, without overcomplicating it, is the total possible kills a weapon could produce against a volume of fully shielded enemies within a comparative time frame. Let's just step through the tiers. Tier 1 includes things like the AR, BR, Commando, Light Rifle, SMG, the Magnum, the Sidekick, you get the idea. These are also interchangeably known as Loadout Weapons. Tier 2 is by far the most complex and dynamic tier across the entire franchise. Tier 2 includes the Needler, the Shotgun, the Saw, the Railgun, things like that. We need to talk more about Tier 2, so just hang tight for a second. Tier 3 is your weapons of the greatest killing potential: rockets, the sniper, the sword, the hammer, the splazer, stuff like that. Now, the only Halo game that cleanly lets you source check a list of tiers is Halo 5, as in Halo 5 Forge, the weapons are sorted by their tier. Fire up Halo 5 if you want to see those full lists. I said we needed to come back to Tier 2 weapons, so let's do that. Tier 2 contains a wide swath of weapons, and the first mental hurdle we need to overcome is thinking everything in this class should be equally lethal. That is not a requirement of Tier 2. So, for example, both the Mangler and Heatwave exist in this tier. Obviously, the Mangler is more lethal on average than the Heatwave, but that doesn't automatically upgrade the Mangler to Tier 3. Furthermore, Tier 2 notoriously has what I call an upper class of weapons under its belt. By upper class, I am most directly talking about the Tier 2 weapons that have the ability to insta-kill enemies conditionally. Insta-killing is a trait that usually defines Tier 3 weapons. However, because of their design limits, these weapons don't have the same raw potential as actual Tier 3 weapons. For the upper Tier 2, think of things like the shotgun or the grenade launcher. This class can also just include Tier 2 weapons of abnormally high lethality too, not just insta-killers. Think of the Mangler, for example. But understanding weapon tiers isn't quite enough. Tied to that is the definition of weapon classes, of which there are again three: loadout weapons, utility weapons, and power weapons. Loadout weapons are the par standard combat tools of any given game, each operating at a nominal level of performance. The thing about loadout weapons is that they don't have to be weak per se, they just have to be the norm for combat. For example, despite the fact that a BR is a loadout weapon, it's still a confident enough performer to beat out a Tier 2 weapon like a Needler if used right. At the back end of this video, I'm going to talk about the flaws of all these systems, so hang tight for that too. There are utility weapons, which are more poised to serve a function better than to serve as slaughter machines. Easy examples are the plasma pistol and the disruptor. Now, I need you all to listen very closely. Just because a weapon has utility, that does not make it a utility weapon. Tried and true utility weapons are defined and controlled by their utility, and this is actually a very hard design motive to stick to. When I did my analysis of the grenade launcher, I spoke to that a little more, but when we're talking about a utility and a utility weapon, think about a function that's meant to complement damage, not define it. A plasma pistol or a disruptor, again, are good examples of things that are well paired with a teammate using some type of damage output, as where you are altering the fight with the utility of these weapons. Last are power weapons, trademark. Simply put, weapons that are more appealing because they have higher killing potential. This is kind of the simplest one to understand. So now we understand tiers and classes, but I think what will be the most important part of this video is kind of this next bit, where we briefly discuss the more common misconceptions, flaws, and quirks with these systems. First and foremost, weapon tiers is not an exact science. Throughout Halo's history, various weapons have challenged the boundary between tiers, because one thing that really changes the raw killing potential is player skill, and on top of that, total interactivity of the sandbox too. Case 1, the Halo 4 Bolt Shot. By technical terms, it's a tier 1 loadout weapon, but wait, it can be charged up to fire as a shotgun that insta-kills. Wouldn't that make it at least a tier 2 power weapon? Uh-oh. Case 2, the Halo CE Magnum. At the literal inception of Halo, the primo loadout weapon, the Magnum, is by today's definitions broken. Capable of fighting at sniper range and melting enemies with automatic blasts of bullets with damage much higher than it ever needed, in a modern Halo, this would have never flown. Case 3, the Skewer. While we tout this as some sort of revolutionary tier 3 sniper/launcher hybrid thing, the reality is the Skewer is virtually just the railgun from Halo 4 and 5. It doesn't have a charge up anymore, I guess, but from a raw volume of lethality standpoint, it's almost the same as a railgun, which was a tier 2 weapon. These are just some basic examples, and none of this is to say you shouldn't trust weapon tiers. I'm just pointing out how some guns do exist in a small space between tiers, and that's fine. Just be able to recognize it when it's happening. On a different note, a major misconception too many people have is that Halo has to conform to the generic FPS weapon class norms, like ARs, pistols, LMGs, the likes. Listen to me, these classifications do not exist in Halo. Just because pistols are weak in COD, that doesn't mean they have to be weak in Halo. So, for example, just because 2 weapons in Halo are pistols, that doesn't mean they need to have the same lethality. Halo Infinite is a great example. There are 4 pistol-type weapons in this game. They have 4 entirely different designs, and therefore rank in different weapon classes and in different tiers. Halo focuses on weapon function, not conforming to generic weapon norms and use. Honestly, any physical representation of a weapon is basically just a skin. The plasma pistol could have been a worm with a top hat, and the effect on gameplay would have been the exact same. Finally, when observing loadout weapons throughout the years, you need to understand that loadout weapons suffered greatly at the hands of the precision weapon meta in earlier Halo entries, which has, for many fans, produced a misconception that weapons like the AR, the SMG, plasma rifle, or whatever else are not supposed to be combat viable. In this video linked above, I used Halo 3 as a catalyst example for what Halo could be free of precision weapon meta, and if you want to know more, I suggest watching that video. By the way, Halo Infinite is also a running game that's a demonstration of the lack of the precision weapon meta. So, with all that, you now have a functioning understanding of both weapon tiers and weapon classes. The goal of this was to provide you with an understanding of the weapon sandbox that helps you make decisions on the battlefield by giving you the ability to more quickly identify and plan out how interactions between weapons will develop. It'll also help you participate in the more nuanced conversations about the weapon sandbox, as Halo fans love to poke pins in these systems and try to weaponize them for conversation. So for today's viewer question, I want you to recount all the Halo games you've played and tell me, is there a weapon in Halo you think was placed in the wrong tier or class? And if so, why? That's gonna do it for this video. Be sure you like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. You can continue the conversation by joining my Discord linked below. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.